Okay, so I've gone and done a little refactoring here, and I'm just going to walk you through it here. Is I created this method called canSenderContribute. So if we look at that, that encapsulates the if sale is open, if KYC verified, finding out what they've contributed here. And if they've contributed 0 NEO, 0 gas, it's a withdrawal attempt. So they're actually trying to take the funds out of there, which we should return false, and we'll go into how you get the funds out of here after. Otherwise, we return true. So that was a big bug that I missed. And I looked back at my reference implementation and saw that check in there. So now if it's a verification trigger, this is again that pre-check, it'll do that. If it's an application trigger, this means we already have the funds. So we have to do this perform fund transfer check. So I reuse this canSenderContribute. So we actually have this scenario where the sale is open, they are KYC'd, and they send us funds through the application trigger. We should actually accept that. So that was another thing that I missed in the last video. So here we're going to return and everything's fine. Here we're going to look at get the sender, get the amounts, and we're going to issue our refund methods in here. So just a little bit of a simpler setup there. So I just wanted to show you that refactoring. Now the next thing I want to do is where things get a little non-standard. We're going to have a method called mint tokens. So this is not, I think, officially really documented anywhere. Maybe it is now, but I know when I first started doing ICOs, it wasn't here. So the NeoPython client and the Neon client, when you're participating in an ICO, well, sorry, the Neon client, when you're participating in an ICO, will call this method. NeoPython, I think there is a mint tokens method within there that will call this method. So it is really used for kind of this ICO in where it will give the person the funds here. So what I want to do is find out what they sent us here. If I'm going to need the sender here. .01. Of course, it doesn't like that. Sorry, just bear with me for a second while I write this out here, and then we'll walk through it. And we'll do this if the gas value So here we're doing this contract where we can accept both NEO and gas. So what I'm doing is figuring out how much NEO and how much gas I sent. And just be aware that they can send both in one transaction. So I could send 10 NEO and 5 gas in one call to this, not a problem. So I check the value here, and then I'm giving them, I'm taking from my owner account right now and sending it to whoever sent us the NEO, and I'm giving them the amount of NEO they sent times 0.01. So, and then I'm doing the same thing here if they sent gas at a 0.05 times their gas allotment rate. So I don't really like using both NEO and gas because people are going to probably try and play the exchange game. So if the NEO to gas ratio gets bigger, they're going to contribute. They're going to change everything over to gas because they get more tokens, or they're going to change everything over to NEO because they get more tokens. It's a big kind of pain to do here. We can make these exchange rates dynamic. We could pull these exchange rates out of storage. And so the owner could then periodically go and update them and keep changing that exchange rate dynamically to try and keep that in balance. But it gets a little difficult here. So here I'm just kind of showing that here we're actually implementing a transfer from the owner account, but that means the owner has to have all the tokens to start with, which we probably don't really want in an ICO. If I were to participate in an ICO and I kind of had a look at it and saw that, you know, this one guy or girl or whoever has 1 billion of these tokens, what's the value of them if one person can move the entire market? So I don't really like it that one address would have that here. So we can actually kind of change things around a bit too here and say, let's not give it from the owner. This is actually not typical. I don't even know why I did it here. What we could do here is say, let's see, how new let's structure it like this. So we're going to start off with the person's balance. So now we have their balance here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go So actually what I'm going to do here is get their balance to start with. So typically they'll have a 0 balance participating in an ICO, but if we allow them to contribute multiple times, then they may already have a balance. So they may have contributed once, got a balance of, let's say, 500 tokens, and then they're contributing again. We don't want to overwrite their balance, so we're going to get their balance. We're going to see if they've contributed NEO or gas or both, and we're going to add that to their balance, and then we're going to store that balance. And then we have to implement the transferred event, as you remember, because we are creating tokens. And so the first argument is who it's from. So in this case, they're being created out of thin air. So the from is null. The to will be the sender. And the amount will be, but it will not be the new balance. Man, I'm just introducing bugs here. Bar, let's go new tokens. Oops. So I'm just going to call this balance. There. So now the transfer event will be how many new tokens were created in this mint operation here. And the balance is what they originally had, and so we're just adding to that. So that makes a little more sense here. Now the thing is that if I contribute with this code, if I contribute, 10 million gas, that's going to be 5 million of tokens, but I only set our total supply to be 1,000 tokens. So this is where you need to put logic in here to make sure that the user does not go over their limit. So sometimes there's a contribution limit, there's a round limit, there's all sorts of things that's really up to you, but you got to make sure that they're not exceeding that limit. And this is also where it gets difficult when you're accepting NEO and gas, is if they go over their limit, what do we accept? Do we reject the entire operation, or do we let them go up to their ceiling and refund them the difference? So that's logic I'm not going to implement here because it's going to be a lot of mucking around and fighting with it, and it's going to be different for everyone. So there's considerations though to put into there of what to do in this case if they send too much, go over the cap, whatever. And there's also considerations around what the exchange rate's going to be. So let's say we make that even 0.1 and 0.5. So I hope that covers that. Again, this is going to work if you only with certain clients. So a lot of ICOs will recommend the client to use. Some of the original ICOs branched code and created their own custom client that called a custom method whenever you participated, but this is starting to become more of a standard. So that's all I want to cover here. In the next video, I'm going to go through how do we get the funds out. So stay tuned for that one.